The galaxy was wide, old, and full of noise. Thousands of species lived across countless stars, trading, fighting, and speaking in endless meetings. At the center of it all stood the Galactic Council, a massive station built above a blue giant star. From here, the most powerful races watched over space. On this cycle, the council chamber was calm, filled with low voices and glowing screens. Then, without warning, one screen went dark. A rich trade world called Velmora stopped sending signals. No distress call. No war alert. Just silence. At first, the council thought it was a system failure. But when minutes turned into hours, fear slowly entered the room. Velmora was not a weak planet. It had defense fleets, shield cities, and billions of citizens. Losing contact made no sense. Probes were sent, then long-range scanners focused on the system. What they found confused everyone. Velmora's star still burned. Its moons still moved. But the planet itself looked wrong. Large parts of its surface were dark, cracked, and broken. Oceans were boiling into space. Cities were gone, as if wiped away by an unseen hand. There were no signs of battle. No energy scars. No debris fields. It was as if the planet was dying from the inside. The council members stared in silence, unable to understand what kind of attack left no clear mark. As the scans improved, one small object appeared near the edge of the system. It was large, dark, and silent. A single ship. It did not move like other ships. It did not hide or run. It simply existed, hanging in space like a shadow. Its design was strange, sharp but simple, with no visible weapons or glowing engines. The scanners struggled to read it, as if space itself bent around the hull. The ship's origin tag finally appeared on the screen. One word filled the chamber. Human. A ripple of confusion spread through the council. Humans were known, but not feared. They were traders, explorers, and diplomats. They lost wars. They avoided conflict. They were not planet killers. The council quickly searched for records. Humans had no known weapons capable of this level of destruction. Their fleets were small. Their worlds were few. Many races believed humans survived only because they were useful, not strong. Some council members even laughed, thinking the tag was wrong. But the ship remained, silent and unmoving, while Velmora continued to break apart. The planet's core collapsed slowly, pulling continents inward. Mountains folded like soft metal. The destruction was calm, steady, and unstoppable. It was not rage. It was control. A weak signal suddenly escaped from Velmora. It was not a call for help, but a dying data burst, sent moments before the planet fully failed. The council translated it quickly. The message was short, broken, and filled with static. It did not fire, the voice said, filled with fear. There was no light, no sound. Space changed. Gravity screamed. The ground turned liquid. We could not run. Reality broke around us. The signal ended. Velmora was gone, reduced to drifting rock and ash. In the chamber, no one spoke. Even the oldest species felt something new. Fear without an enemy they could see. The council demanded answers. How could one ship do this? Why would humans do this? Scouts were sent toward the system, but none came close. Their instruments failed. Their ships turned back, pushed away by invisible force. The human ship did nothing. It did not chase them. It did not threaten them. It waited. That waiting felt worse than an attack. It felt like a warning. Across nearby systems, alarms began to sound. Civilian ships fled. Military fleets gathered. Every species remembered old stories about humans. Stories about survival, not power. About persistence, not dominance. Those stories no longer fit. Deep inside the council station, historians searched ancient records. They found something troubling. Long ago, humans had faced extinction more than once. They survived plagues, wars, and planetary disasters. They lost worlds and never cried for help. Each time they were pushed back, They adapted. They learned patience. They learned restraint. No record showed humans seeking revenge. They simply disappeared from the center of galactic life. Now, watching a planet die without a single weapon fired, the Council wondered what humans had been doing all that time. A young observer species asked a simple question that echoed through the chamber. "If this is one ship," it said, "how many do they have?" No one answered. The idea alone was terrifying. One human warship had erased a planet without effort. Not in anger. Not in haste. It acted like a tool performing its task. The Council realized too late that they had misunderstood humanity. Weakness was never the truth. Silence was. The human ship finally sent a transmission. It was clear, calm, and short. "This system is under human action. Do not interfere." The message ended. No threat followed. None was needed. As the Council watched, the ship slowly turned, aligning with a new star path. Its destination was unknown, but its direction was clear. Another world lay ahead. Across the galaxy, leaders felt a cold understanding settle in their minds. This was not a war for territory. This was not conquest. This was a lesson. And the galaxy had just seen the first example. When humanity's warship arrived, planets stopped existing. The message from the human warship spread across the galaxy faster than fear itself. Every major system received the same short transmission. No threats. No demands. Just a statement of action. The Galactic Council remained in emergency session, watching the silent image of Velmora's broken remains rotate slowly on the main screen. The planet was gone, but the meaning of its destruction was only beginning to form. Many still refused to believe that humans were responsible. Some claimed the ship was stolen. Others said it was an ancient weapon humans had awakened by mistake. Denial felt safer than truth. Council analysts began pulling data from old conflicts. They searched every recorded human war, every lost battle, every treaty signed under pressure. The pattern was clear. Humans avoided long wars. They surrendered territory quickly. They accepted unfair terms. To the galaxy, this behavior looked like weakness. But deeper study showed something else. Humans never forgot. They recorded everything. Every defeat became a lesson. Every loss became a design problem to solve. While other species celebrated victory, humans studied failure. Long before Velmora fell, humans had been pushed out of key trade routes. Powerful empires taxed them heavily or blocked their expansion. Human colonies near hostile borders vanished, destroyed in small wars no one remembered anymore. Each time, humans protested once, then withdrew. They never asked the Council for justice. They never returned with fleets. Instead, they pulled back into deep space, far from shared lanes and common stars. Most species believed humans had accepted their place. Few wondered why human science reports suddenly stopped reaching public archives. In quiet systems far from galactic maps, humans worked. Their shipyards were hidden inside dark nebulae and dead star zones where sensors failed. They did not build large fleets. They built few ships, each one massive, layered, and strange. Human engineers stopped thinking in terms of weapons. They focused on rules of the universe instead. Gravity, time flow, pressure between dimensions. They asked a simple question. What if a ship did not attack an enemy, but instead changed the space around it so the enemy could no longer exist? The ship seen at Velmora was the result of centuries of silent work. It was not designed to win battles. It was designed to end them before they began. Humans called it an Oblivion-class warship. To humans, it was not a symbol of power. It was a final answer. A reminder built into metal and math. The galaxy would never see the factories that made it. The galaxy would only see the result when it arrived. Back in the council chamber, panic grew. Nearby systems reported strange readings. Gravity waves echoed where the human ship passed. Not attacks. Just movement. Space bent slightly, like water disturbed by a large, slow-moving object. Fleets were ordered to follow at a safe distance. None dared to approach too closely. Every commander remembered Velmora. No one wanted to test what happened inside that invisible boundary around the ship. An elder council member finally spoke the truth many feared. Humans had never been weak. They had been patient. While others raced to build bigger guns and faster fighters, humans chose control. They learned how stars formed and died. They learned how planets stayed together. And then they learned how to take those systems apart without violence. The galaxy's mistake was thinking mercy meant inability. Humans had simply waited until mercy was no longer needed. A second system went silent 3 days later. This time it was a military outpost world, heavily fortified and far from civilian space. The same pattern appeared. No battle. No warning. The planet's gravity spiked, crushing cities into the ground. The atmosphere burned away slowly. Escape ships failed as space twisted around them. The human warship remained distant, watching. Observers recorded everything, terrified but unable to look away. The destruction ended only when the planet broke apart completely. Again, the ship left without speaking. Fear turned into understanding. These were not random attacks. Humans were targeting symbols of past aggression. Worlds that once voted to push humans back. Worlds that had supported wars against human colonies. The list was long, but not endless. That realization brought new terror. Humans were not angry. They were precise. That meant the violence would stop only when their lesson was complete. Inside the warship, the human commander watched the data calmly. He did not celebrate. He did not speak of revenge. To him, this was a duty delayed too long. Humanity had learned that survival sometimes required being feared. Not hated. Feared. Fear stopped wars before they started. Fear saved lives in the long run. That belief guided every decision. The warship turned once more, aligning with another star system. The path was chosen long ago. The Galactic Council sent urgent messages asking for dialogue. None were answered. For the first time in known history, the Council understood its own weakness. Its power depended on shared belief. Humans had stepped outside that belief. They no longer asked permission. They acted. Across the galaxy, one truth became impossible to deny. Humanity had not risen suddenly. It had always been climbing, slowly and silently. And now that climb had reached its peak. When humans finally moved, the galaxy could only watch and learn, because the age of ignoring humanity was over forever. The destruction of the second planet removed all remaining doubt. Across the galaxy, fear replaced debate. The Galactic Council no longer argued about responsibility or intent. The truth was clear. Humanity had built something beyond known warfare, and it was now being used with cold precision. Scientists from every major species were pulled into emergency teams, ordered to explain how a single ship could destroy entire worlds without firing a visible weapon. The answer, when it began to form, was more terrifying than any superweapon the galaxy had ever imagined. Long-range sensor data from the destroyed systems was compared frame by frame. At first, nothing seemed unusual. Energy levels stayed low. Radiation spikes were absent. Then one researcher noticed a pattern in the gravitational readings. Space around the human warship did not behave normally. Gravity did not flow outward from mass as expected. Instead, it twisted, folded, and pressed inward, as if invisible hands were squeezing reality itself. The ship was not attacking the planet directly. It was changing the rules that held the planet together. Further analysis revealed something worse. Time inside the affected zone moved unevenly. Atomic clocks placed in observation probes showed delays and jumps. Seconds stretched in some regions and collapsed in others. This instability spread from the ship like a slow wave. When it reached a planet, the world began to fail from the inside. The core heated too fast. The mantle cracked under uneven pressure. The surface collapsed as gravity pulled in conflicting directions. The planet was not destroyed. It was unmade. Council scientists struggled to name the technology. It was not a weapon in the traditional sense. There were no projectiles, no beams, no explosions. It was closer to a field a controlled distortion of fundamental forces. Humans had learned how to compress gravity, stretch time, and anchor both to a moving object. The warship carried its own pocket of altered physics. Anything caught inside that pocket was forced to obey new laws. Planets could not survive such change. The most frightening detail was the speed. Once activated, the field spread slowly, giving the illusion of mercy. Observers saw oceans boil over hours, continents fold over days. Evacuation seemed possible at first, but it never worked. As the field grew, space around the planet warped. Engines failed. Navigation collapsed. Escape became impossible. The destruction felt calm and patient, like a natural process. That calmness broke the minds of those watching. Violence usually screamed. This one whispered. Military leaders asked the only question that mattered. Could it be stopped? Simulations were run using the strongest weapons in known arsenals. None worked. Energy attacks dissolved before reaching the ship. Kinetic strikes curved away, pulled off course by twisted gravity. Even star-level weapons failed in theory. The field absorbed or redirected everything. The warship was not heavily armored. It did not need to be. Reality itself was its shield. As understanding grew, so did dread. Humans had crossed a line no other species had even approached. They had turned science into dominance. This was not escalation. This was evolution. The galaxy's greatest fear was no longer invasion. It was erasure. A planet could vanish without leaving a battlefield, without a story of heroic defense. Just silence and drifting stone. Reports soon confirmed another chilling detail. The warship did not activate its field at full power immediately. It adjusted the strength carefully. This meant humans could choose how fast a world died. They could end it in hours or stretch the process over weeks. That control removed any remaining illusion of accident or loss of control. Every destruction was intentional, measured, and deliberate. Within the human warship, systems monitored trillions of calculations every second. The commander reviewed projections with quiet focus. He did not think in terms of enemies. He thought in terms of stability. Certain regions of the galaxy had proven hostile to long-term peace. Those regions had attacked humanity when it was weak. History showed they would do so again. This operation was not revenge. It was prevention. The warship existed to remove future threats before they could grow. The Galactic Council attempted one final act of defiance. A coalition fleet was assembled, larger than any before it. Hundreds of ships formed a wall between the human warship and its next target. They broadcast a united message, demanding the ship stop or face total destruction. The human warship slowed but did not stop. Its reply came moments later, calm and unchanged. Interference will result in inclusion. The meaning was unclear, but the tone was final. As the coalition fleet moved closer, their sensors failed one by one. Gravity readings spiked. Formations broke apart as ships drifted off course. Panic spread through command channels. The fleet tried to retreat, but space no longer flowed correctly around them. The edge of the human field brushed against the nearest vessels. Their hulls twisted. Internal structures collapsed. The ships were not targeted. They were simply caught too close. The rest of the fleet fled in terror. The Council understood at last. There would be no heroic stand. No final battle. Humanity's weapon did not care about courage or numbers. It obeyed math and physics rewritten by human hands. The warship resumed its path, untouched and unchallenged. Across the galaxy, worlds watched its slow movement on star maps, knowing that once it arrived, resistance meant nothing. Humanity had mastered the deepest forces of existence, and with that mastery came absolute power. When the laws of space itself could be bent, planets were no longer safe, and the future belonged to those who controlled reality. Fear alone could not hold the galaxy together. After the failure of the coalition fleet, anger replaced panic. Many species believed that if humanity was not stopped now, there would be no future left to defend. The Galactic Council declared a full emergency response. Ancient treaties were activated. Long-forbidden weapons were unlocked. Fleets that had never flown together were forced into alliance. This was no longer about pride or territory. It was about survival. For the first time in recorded history, the galaxy prepared to strike as one. The target was clear. The human warship moved toward another system, calm and unstoppable. Council strategists selected a battlefield far from populated worlds, a dead region filled with broken stars and dark matter clouds. The plan was simple. Lure the ship in. Surround it. Overwhelm it with everything the galaxy could bring. If the weapon could bend space, then the answer was force on a scale so large that space itself would break. It was a desperate idea, but desperation ruled the moment. The trap was set. False signals were leaked, pointing to a massive military world preparing defenses. The human warship changed course slightly, moving toward the location. As it entered the dead region, hundreds of fleets emerged from hidden positions. Energy cannons charged. Star lances aligned. Reality-tearing bombs, banned for thousands of years, were armed. The galaxy held its breath. This was the moment when humanity would be tested. The first attack was unleashed all at once. Space lit up with light brighter than stars. Energy waves crashed forward, bending even the dark matter clouds. For a brief moment, hope returned. Sensors showed massive disturbances around the human warship. Commanders believed the field had finally been breached. Cheers erupted across battle channels. The galaxy had struck back. Then the light faded, and the warship was still there. The attacks had not failed in the usual way. They had simply ended. Energy vanished as it approached the ship, absorbed or redirected into empty space. Kinetic weapons curved away, pulled into strange orbits before breaking apart. Reality bombs detonated early, their effects twisted and scattered. The warship did not dodge. It did not counterattack. It endured unmoved, as if the galaxy itself had misunderstood what it was facing. The human warship finally responded. Not with weapons, but with motion. Its field expanded slightly, just enough to touch the nearest enemy ships. The effect was immediate and horrifying. Hulls groaned as gravity pressed from impossible angles. Internal decks folded inward. Crews were crushed without warning. Ships lost shape, turning into twisted metal shells before breaking apart. There were no explosions. No heroic last stands. Just sudden, silent destruction. Panic consumed the alliance. Fleets tried to pull back, but formation was impossible. Navigation systems failed as space warped unevenly. Ships collided or drifted helplessly. Commanders screamed orders that could not be followed. The galaxy's greatest armada collapsed into chaos within minutes. The human warship did not pursue fleeing vessels. It did not need to. Its presence alone was enough to end the battle. As the surviving fleets escaped the dead region, the Council demanded a ceasefire channel. This time, the human warship answered. A single human figure appeared on screens across the fleet networks. He stood still, calm, dressed in simple command attire. His face showed no anger, no pride. Only certainty. He spoke in clear, basic language so all could understand. "You were warned," the commander said. "This is not a war. This is correction. We did not come to conquer you. We came to stop you." The message was short, but its weight crushed more than any weapon. The galaxy had always believed wars were won by strength of numbers. Humanity had proven that belief false. The Council tried to argue. They spoke of law, of shared rules, of balance. The commander listened without reaction. When they finished, he replied with one sentence. "Your rules failed when you allowed our worlds to burn." He ended the transmission. There was no room for debate. The past had already decided the present. In the silence that followed, something broke inside the galaxy's leadership. The realization was complete. Humanity was not seeking approval. It was enforcing consequences. Every destroyed planet, every collapsed fleet, followed a list written long ago in human history. The warship resumed its course, moving toward its next target, untouched by the greatest attack the galaxy could assemble. Across countless worlds, citizens watched the battle recordings in horror. The idea of safety vanished. Borders meant nothing. Fleets meant nothing. Only one truth remained. Humanity could not be stopped by force. The age of equal powers was over. A new era had begun, one shaped by a species that learned patience through suffering. As the stars returned to their normal glow and the dead region fell silent again, the Galactic Council faced a future it could not control. The galaxy had struck back and failed. Now, it could only wait and hope that humanity would decide when the lesson was complete. The galaxy no longer questioned humanity's power. After the failed united attack, silence spread across star systems like a heavy shadow. Fleets returned to their home worlds damaged and broken, carrying stories no one wanted to hear. The human warship continued its slow journey, unchallenged, moving with the confidence of something that had already won. For the first time, the Galactic Council understood that this conflict was not driven by machines alone. Behind the warship stood a human mind, calm and unshaken, guiding every action. Inside the warship, the command deck was quiet. There were no raised voices, no alarms screaming in panic. Human officers moved with steady purpose, checking data and adjusting calculations. At the center stood the commander. His name was known only to a few, but his authority was absolute. He did not wear symbols of rank or power. His presence alone commanded respect. He watched the galaxy as a physician watches a patient, searching for problems that must be treated before they become fatal. The commander reviewed records of destroyed worlds without emotion. Each planet had been selected long before the warship ever launched. They were not chosen for hatred, but for history. These were worlds that had led attacks on human colonies, approved blockades that starved millions, or funded wars that erased entire human cities. Humanity had documented every vote, every order, every refusal of aid. The warship was not acting in rage. It was executing a list created by survivors. A young officer asked a question many had wondered but feared to voice. "Why now?" he asked. "Why wait so long?" The commander answered without turning. Humans, he said, had learned that reacting too quickly only fed endless war. Every species fought for power. Humans chose to fight for finality. They waited until they understood the galaxy completely. Until they knew who would never change. Only then did they move. The next target appeared on the main display. It was a heavily armed industrial world, home to shipyards that once built fleets used against humanity. Billions lived there, many innocent, many unaware of their world's past crimes. The commander studied evacuation projections carefully. He knew most would not escape. He accepted that wait silently. In his view, the greater tragedy was allowing future wars to kill even more. Humanity had learned that mercy without strength only delayed suffering. Before engaging, the warship sent a message to the target world. It was the longest transmission yet. The commander spoke directly, his voice calm and steady. He listed the crimes recorded in human archives. The dates. The decisions. The lives lost. He did not accuse. He informed. He then offered 10 minutes for evacuation. No negotiations. No extensions. The message ended. Across the planet, panic erupted. The council begged the commander to stop. They promised reforms, new laws, shared defense. He listened, then responded simply. Humanity had heard promises before. Promises did not save their worlds. Only action did. He reminded them that the warship had already shown restraint. Only specific targets were being removed. The rest of the galaxy remained untouched. This was not extermination. It was correction. As the countdown reached 0, the commander gave the order. The field activated slowly, carefully controlled. Sensors tracked every change. Gravity tightened. The planet's rotation faltered. Cities cracked and folded. Atmosphere burned away in glowing streams. The commander watched until the world was beyond saving. Then he turned away. The ship powered down the field and moved on. No celebration followed. No silence either. Work continued. Within the crew, there was no hatred toward the galaxy. Many officers had grown up hearing stories of lost Earth cities, of refugee fleets drifting through space. They believed this mission would prevent future children from growing up with those stories. That belief gave them strength. They did not see themselves as monsters. They saw themselves as guardians doing what no one else would. As the warship left the ruined system, the commander addressed his crew. Humanity, he said, was not claiming the galaxy. It was teaching it. Power did not come from numbers or noise. It came from understanding reality better than anyone else. Those who respected that truth would live in peace. Those who ignored it would be removed, quietly and completely. Across the galaxy, species began to change. Worlds once proud of their fleets dismantled them. Councils rewrote laws. Borders opened. The fear of humanity forced unity where diplomacy had failed. The commander observed these changes without satisfaction. This was not victory. It was progress bought at a terrible cost. The warship adjusted course toward the next system, one of the final names on the list. The commander knew that when the list ended, humanity would disappear again, returning to the shadows of deep space. They did not seek rule. They sought silence. A galaxy where no child would watch their world burn. Until that future was secure, the warship would continue. And as long as it moved, the galaxy would remember the lesson humanity had waited centuries to teach. The next world in the human commander's path was called Virilia. It was a wealthy, fortified planet, home to billions of citizens and massive industrial cities. Unlike the last targets, Virilia had some knowledge of humanity's history, but not enough to understand the full scope of the warship's power. Its leaders assumed that preparing defense fleets and activating planetary shields could stop a single ship. The Council, desperate to prevent another disaster, broadcast urgent warnings, urging evacuation. But even with all their efforts, the planet had little time. The human warship approached slowly, deliberately, like a predator sizing up its prey, and no one dared underestimate the threat. As sensors tracked the approaching warship, panic spread through Virilia's cities. Citizens rushed to evacuation centers, overcrowding transports and jump gates. Ships overloaded, engines strained against traffic, and warnings went unheeded in the chaos. Military leaders scrambled to organize fleets, even knowing that previous resistance had failed. They fired missiles, energy pulses, and gravity bombs toward the distant silhouette of the human vessel. Nothing changed. The warship did not speed up or slow down. It did not respond in anger. The fleets faltered as their attacks dissolved in the warped space around the ship, failing before reaching their target. From orbit, the commander observed the planet with a calm, analytical eye. He did not look at Virilia as an enemy but as a system whose fate was already sealed. The humans had prepared for this moment long ago, studying every record of Virilia's past aggression against human colonies. Every vote, every blockade, every fleet deployment had been logged. Humanity did not act impulsively. The decision to strike was measured, deliberate, and final. And still, the commander allowed a window for the citizens to escape. Mercy was part of the strategy, but only for those who acknowledged reality. Those who remained would witness the consequences. The countdown for Virilia's fate began. Sensors detected the planet's core shifting unevenly. Gravitational anomalies spread from the edges of the system, warping space around it. Mountains bent, rivers boiled, and cityscapes cracked as if the planet itself were breathing in and out. Buildings folded like paper under invisible pressure. Oceans moved unnaturally, boiling and evaporating simultaneously. Evacuation ships launched in desperation, but gravity waves pulled them off course, crushing them or sending them spiraling into the atmosphere. Panic turned into terror, screams filling the communication channels of remaining military ships. The human warship did not fire a single weapon, yet the planet's destruction was inevitable. Leaders of Virilia attempted to broadcast pleas. They sent every diplomatic signal imaginable, offering surrender, tribute, and peace treaties. The commander received the transmissions but did not respond in negotiation. Humanity had seen false promises before. The warship's mission was not political. It was corrective. The message was clear. Humanity allowed time for survival, but only action could save those who could act. The planet's leaders understood, and yet, too many had failed to evacuate. The consequences were immediate. As the field around Virilia expanded, chaos became visible even from orbit. Cities folded into glowing rubble. Artificial satellites twisted into debris. Atmospheric storms intensified as gravity anomalies pulled winds in impossible directions. The citizens' attempts at escape were thwarted at every turn. Entire evacuation convoys were crushed or flung into space before they could reach safety. Those watching on other systems could not believe what they saw. The destruction was methodical, precise, and silent. No energy beams. No explosions. Just inevitable collapse, as if the planet had decided to end itself under the unseen hand of the warship. From inside the warship, the commander monitored each moment carefully. He did not celebrate, nor did he show impatience. He observed, waited, and recorded. Humanity had designed this field not to kill indiscriminately but to enforce consequence. The timing, the intensity, the duration, everything was controlled. Virelia's collapse was proof of human mastery over space and matter. The commander noted which regions of the planet suffered first and which areas lasted slightly longer. It was not for curiosity. It was for understanding. Humanity had studied extinction before. They had perfected it. The planet begged silently, not in words but in signals of desperation. Scanners picked up frantic messages from population centers, prayers to alien gods, and appeals for mercy. None could reach the human mind. The warship acted on principle, not sentiment. The lesson was simple. Actions have consequences. Worlds that ignored humanity's warnings, attacked its colonies, or refused treaties would face correction. The inhabitants of Virelia could not grasp the inevitability until it was too late. As the final minutes passed, the commander noted the last attempts at evacuation. Ships tried to jump out of the planet's orbit but failed. Engines overloaded and melted. Hulls cracked under the stress of gravitational distortions. Civilians screamed through communication channels before all went silent. The field slowed only when Virelia was completely uninhabitable. Oceans were gone. Cities were gone. The atmosphere had burned and collapsed. Rocks floated in twisted orbit, the remnants of a civilization reduced to nothing without a single shot fired. With the planet now effectively erased, the human warship moved on. The field dissipated gradually, leaving only cold debris and silence behind. The galaxy observed, and the lesson was clear. Power did not come from weapons or numbers, but from understanding forces beyond conventional limits. The commander had not acted in rage, but with calm, measured purpose. Mercy had been offered. Only the inability of the planet to respond led to its destruction. Across the galaxy, whispers of fear and awe spread. Humanity's patience, intelligence, and cold resolve had proven far superior to any alliance or fleet. As the warship adjusted course toward the next system, the commander reviewed the recordings of Virelia's destruction. He did not speak of victory or loss. There was no emotion beyond careful observation. Humanity's lesson had been delivered once again. Those who survived would carry the story of what happened, and those who did not would leave no evidence that could mislead future observers. The galaxy was learning, slowly and painfully, that the era of ignoring humanity was over. In every star system, a single truth emerged. When humanity acted, no planet was safe, no fleet could challenge them, and no promise could replace the inevitability of their judgment. The galaxy was not yet willing to accept defeat. After Virelia's fall, the Council convened in emergency, assembling every available fleet for a final attempt to stop the human warship. The plan was desperate but comprehensive. They selected a dead region of space, full of collapsed stars and gravitational anomalies, as a trap. There, hidden fleets waited with all their might, armed with energy weapons, kinetic projectiles, and forbidden ancient devices capable of tearing space apart. They called it the Last Stand, hoping that overwhelming force could destroy the warship or at least force it to retreat. No one expected victory. Few even believed survival was possible. The fleets moved into position carefully, hiding behind clouds of dark matter and asteroid fields. Every commander knew that hesitation could be fatal. Communications were tightly controlled. Every channel repeated warnings. If the human warship detected a single misstep, it would destroy the trap before it could strike. Sensors tracked the distant silhouette of the warship as it entered the dead region. It moved slowly, deliberately, like a hunter approaching a blindfolded prey. The fleets remained silent, waiting for the signal to fire. When the command was given, the galaxy unleashed its full power. Energy beams arced across space, colliding in mid-air with blinding light. Gravitation bombs detonated, sending waves that bent stars and warped the surrounding void. Kinetic projectiles traveled at impossible speeds, striking empty space where the warship should have been. For a brief moment, hope returned. Observers saw interference patterns in the warship's shields and thought the trap was working. Cheers echoed across control stations, and some dared to believe that humanity's era of dominance might end here. Then the effect vanished. The warship remained. Every weapon fired either dissolved in space, curved away, or was absorbed without trace. The ancient devices designed to tear reality apart malfunctioned. Their energy was redirected, exploding harmlessly into voids that had no purpose. The warship did not dodge. It did not accelerate. It endured the full force of the trap without a single sign of damage. Fleet commanders watched in disbelief. They had brought everything, yet the human ship acted as if untouched by the galaxy's mightiest weapons. Finally, the warship responded. Its field expanded outward, reaching the closest enemy vessels. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. Hulls creaked and twisted under unnatural gravitational pressure. Internal systems failed. Bridges collapsed. Crews were trapped in sudden distortions that left no escape. Ships folded in on themselves, turning into unrecognizable metal sculptures before being drawn into space like dust. There was no explosion. No fight. Only sudden, inevitable destruction. The fleets scattered in panic, many destroyed before they could retreat. The trap had failed completely. The Council attempted one last transmission, demanding that the warship halt and negotiate. The human commander accepted the communication but did not reply with anger. His response was calm, precise, and chilling. Your attack was predictable. Your power was insufficient. Your actions will not repeat. The message ended. There was no threat, no warning, only an unmistakable statement of fact. The galaxy had tested the warship and failed. The human commander had anticipated every move, every strategy, and had already neutralized it without firing a single weapon. Observing from the bridge, the commander made adjustments. He studied each destroyed fleet and each surviving vessel, noting how they had failed and why. Every calculation he made had been prepared centuries in advance, based on the history of galactic warfare and human suffering. Humans did not act blindly or in anger. They acted logically, and they acted for finality. The trap had been elegant, but it had failed because it underestimated patience, understanding, and control. Humanity had mastered forces no one else even comprehended. Across the galaxy, the failure of the trap sent shockwaves of fear. Leaders who had once laughed at humanity's weakness now understood the truth. No fleet, no weapon, no alliance could challenge the warship. Planets could be defended, but only temporarily. Humanity's reach was beyond conventional measures. Observers from nearby systems recorded the destruction, sharing the story with every colony, every station, and every council. Fear spread faster than the light from stars, and whispers began that the era of human patience had ended, replaced by the era of human inevitability. Even those who survived the battle were affected. Veteran commanders lost confidence in traditional strategies. Fleets were grounded in fear of unseen destruction. Diplomacy became secondary to survival. No one challenged humanity anymore. For the first time, the galaxy realized that the human warship's power was not in its weapons, but in its knowledge, its planning, and its control over forces beyond comprehension. The lesson was simple. Humanity did not attack without reason, but when it acted, resistance was futile. The human warship continued its journey. It left the dead region behind, untouched and silent, as if the failed trap had never existed. The commander did not celebrate the destruction. There was no satisfaction. Humanity's mission was not conquest or revenge. It was a lesson delivered, carefully and precisely, so that the galaxy would remember. For centuries, the commander had waited for the right moment, preparing humanity's statement to the galaxy. Every action, every calculation, every step taken had led to this point. In the aftermath, the Galactic Council convened once more, this time in silence. Leaders avoided each other's gaze. Ships were repaired, but fleets no longer patrolled the borders with confidence. Instead, they monitored, waited, and hoped that the human warship would move on without targeting more worlds. The message of inevitability was clear. Humanity had mastered forces beyond comprehension, and any attempt to fight back only confirmed their mastery. The final trap had failed. The galaxy had learned that lesson in the most brutal and undeniable way. The human warship moved forward, leaving the dead region behind. It did not slow. It did not hesitate. It was guided by a mind that had predicted every outcome, controlled every possibility, and executed every calculation perfectly. Behind it, fleets, systems, and civilizations trembled. The galaxy had discovered a terrifying truth. The human commander was not just a warrior. He was a strategist, a guardian, and a force that could not be opposed. The era of questioning humanity's power was over. The era of obedience to reality had begun. After the failed trap, the galaxy entered a period of uneasy silence. Worlds whispered of the human warship's unstoppable power. Fleets returned home damaged and broken, their commanders unable to explain the failure. The Galactic Council convened in emergency session, debating what could be done next. Some urged immediate retaliation, while others argued for surrender and negotiation. Across the galaxy, fear had replaced pride. No species wanted to test the human warship again. Even those who had previously dismissed humanity as weak began to reconsider everything they knew about the species. Humanity was no longer underestimated. Inside the human warship, the commander reviewed the outcomes of the last engagements. His expression remained calm and composed. There was no satisfaction in destruction. The purpose of the warship was not revenge. It was enforcement of principle. Humanity had endured centuries of attacks, betrayals, and blockades. Entire colonies had been destroyed while the galaxy remained silent. The human commander's mission was to deliver a message: actions have consequences. Those who acted aggressively toward humanity would face correction. Those who did not would remain safe. The choice, as always, rested on the galaxy itself. The commander sent a single transmission to nearby systems. It was brief and deliberate. Humanity does not seek conquest. Human worlds will not be attacked. Compliance ensures survival. Aggression invites correction. The message spread quickly, reaching billions across hundreds of systems. Unlike prior transmissions, this one carried no immediate threat. It was a statement of policy, clear and unwavering. For the first time, the galaxy could see the human perspective. They were not conquerors. They were enforcers of their own survival and protectors of their species. The lesson was simple. Fear was not the weapon. Knowledge, patience, and the ability to act with precision were. Despite the calm nature of the transmission, reactions across the galaxy were mixed. Some species welcomed the message, understanding that alignment with humanity could prevent further disasters. Trade routes reopened cautiously. Diplomatic envoys began careful communications, seeking understanding and safety. Others, however, were defiant. Some systems plotted rebellions, while rogue fleets prepared to strike at human-controlled sectors. They believed the human warship could be outsmarted or trapped. They had not yet grasped the scale of planning, preparation, and patience that guided human action. Within the warship, the commander continued monitoring galactic activity. Systems that had attempted defiance were studied carefully. Every fleet, every planetary defense system, every political decision was logged and analyzed. Humanity did not act impulsively, but they acted with full knowledge of past behavior. The commander adjusted courses, calculated fields, and prepared for contingencies with precision. Each system that had previously acted aggressively was now under scrutiny. Humanity's rule was invisible but absolute. The galaxy had learned that disobedience could result in destruction, and obedience ensured survival. While some leaders sought peace, the commander issued no further immediate attacks. Humanity's warship moved slowly, deliberately, a silent reminder of their presence. The galaxy had enough time to adapt, reorganize, and learn the lesson. This pause was strategic. It allowed species to reflect on their choices, to understand that humanity's power was not in the speed of action but in the certainty of consequences. Worlds that cooperated found safety, while those who ignored warnings faced the slow, inescapable truth of human precision. Reports from the galaxy confirmed the effects. Several systems sent messages praising the new order. Trade flourished in areas previously hostile to humans. Borders stabilized. Piracy declined. Even ancient conflicts between alien species were temporarily paused, as fear of human oversight enforced compliance indirectly. Humanity did not need to intervene directly. Their mere presence and the certainty of action reshaped the political landscape. The commander observed these changes without satisfaction or pride. The goal was always stability, not admiration. At the same time, some species continued plotting. They built secret fleets, constructed hidden weapons, and coordinated resistance in areas far from human sensors. The commander knew these efforts existed and allowed them to continue, documenting every action. Patience had always been humanity's strength. There was no rush. Eventually, history had shown that those who failed to learn from warnings would face consequences. This was not cruelty. It was inevitability. The galaxy had been given every chance to understand, and still, some would refuse to comply. The human commander considered the future. Humanity would not vanish entirely, nor would they rule overtly. Their presence would be felt but unseen, a balance of power maintained through knowledge and foresight. Those who respected human principles would continue in peace. Those who challenged them would face measured consequences. The galaxy, as always, had a choice. The commander's calculations and predictions were flawless. Each action weighted against history, probability, and the behavior of alien species. Humanity's patience was infinite, and their judgment precise. As the warship moved toward its next observation point, the galaxy understood a simple truth. The era of open conflict with humanity was over. Power no longer came from numbers, fleets, or even weapons. Power came from understanding, patience, and the ability to enforce consequences when necessary. The commander's presence was enough to maintain order, without firing a shot. Across the stars, leaders whispered the same sentence in fear and awe: humanity does not attack without reason, but when it acts, none can resist. By the time the warship left the systems under review, the galaxy had been reshaped. Compliance, caution, and understanding replaced arrogance, aggression, and ignorance. Humanity had not destroyed worlds recklessly. They had corrected them. They had offered mercy where possible and allowed disobedience to show its consequences. The commander recorded every detail, noting successes, failures, and lessons for the future. The galaxy had finally begun to recognize the method behind humanity's power, and the human warship moved silently onward, leaving a quiet, tense peace in its wake. Despite the careful enforcement of human conditions, there remained one empire that refused to yield. The Xylar Dominion, a massive coalition of militarized worlds, openly defied the warnings. They had laughed at humanity's restraint, calling the human warship a myth created to frighten weaker species. They rebuilt fleets faster than the Council could disband them, fortified planets with thousands of defensive satellites, and issued proclamations of defiance. Their leaders believed that courage and numbers could overcome any threat. They were about to discover that humanity measured strength differently, and that patience could be far deadlier than aggression. The human commander observed the Xylar Dominion calmly. From the bridge of the warship, he analyzed centuries of their records, noting every attack they had ever sanctioned against human colonies. The Dominion had supported blockades that starved entire planets. They had authorized fleets to destroy settlements, forced entire human cities into exile, and continued to resist diplomacy even after centuries of warnings. The commander did not act hastily. Humanity had waited, studying, recording, and calculating. The warship moved toward the Dominion's capital system with deliberate pace, a silent predator approaching prey that had refused every warning. When the Dominion detected the approach, panic spread across their worlds. Signals were sent to allied systems, demanding support. Ships scrambled to defend the capital, while evacuation orders were issued for civilians. Yet, the Dominion's leaders still underestimated the threat. They believed their fleets, numbering in the thousands, could confront a single ship. Sensors tracked the human warship as it entered the system, unmoving and silent. The fleets fired preemptively, energy beams slicing through space, gravity disruptors spinning in calculated arcs. For a moment, it seemed as if the Dominion might succeed. Then the human field expanded. Within seconds, the fleet began to falter. Gravity twisted unnaturally, pulling ships into impossible angles. Engines strained and failed under the pressure, while internal systems collapsed. Even the largest vessels, bristling with weapons, folded in on themselves, metal screeching under forces that defied comprehension. Explosions were unnecessary. Resistance was irrelevant. The commander had chosen a methodical approach, ensuring that the destruction was total but controlled. No lives were wasted beyond those who refused evacuation. Even as the fleet was destroyed, space remained quiet. There was no chaos, only inevitability. The capital planet of the Xylar Dominion became the next focus. The human commander allowed time for evacuation, sending a single message that repeated humanity's conditions. The planet had 10 minutes to abandon surface cities, and every method of escape was monitored. Many citizens fled, but thousands remained, trapped by the speed of events and disbelief at what they were witnessing. Gravity waves and temporal distortions began subtly at first. Buildings twisted, rivers boiled, and mountains buckled under invisible pressure. The commander watched the effects, noting efficiency and minimizing unnecessary harm. Humanity did not destroy recklessly. Every action was precise, calculated, and absolute. The Dominion leadership issued last-minute orders to fire nuclear arrays and space-mounted doomsday weapons. Every device failed before leaving the launch points. Gravity anomalies redirected missiles into orbit or destroyed them in mid-space. Energy beams dissolved in the distorted field surrounding the warship. Even attempts to jam the human systems backfired, sending communications into feedback loops that confused Dominion fleets further. The commander did not need to intervene directly. He allowed the laws of physics, altered by human design, to complete the work. Each failure of the Dominion reinforced the lesson humanity had waited centuries to teach. As the planet began to collapse, the scale of destruction became clear. Oceans boiled and evaporated, lands folded like paper, and cities disintegrated without fire or explosions. The warship monitored every change, ensuring that the collapse was complete yet controlled. In moments, the capital world became a lifeless shell, floating in orbit with no trace of life or civilization remaining. Observers across the galaxy recorded the event in horror. The Dominion, one of the oldest and proudest empires, had been erased with precision, a reminder that humanity acted not in anger but in inevitability. The human commander then sent a final message to the remnants of the Dominion, one sentence delivered with calm authority. "This is the consequence of your choices. Learn from it, or disappear like your capital." No argument could follow. No fleet could resist. Humanity had proven that power was not measured in numbers, weapons, or fleets, but in patience, calculation, and understanding of forces beyond comprehension. The galaxy witnessed the cost of defiance, and the example made was absolute. Across the remaining worlds, leaders took note. Trade routes reopened, alliances shifted, and the fear of humanity enforced compliance without further conflict. Even the most ambitious species understood the new order. Humanity had demonstrated that resistance was meaningless, and that deliberate, calculated action could achieve what fleets and weapons could not. The commander recorded every detail of the Dominion's collapse, preserving it in human archives as a reminder that history was not rewritten by emotion but by principle. The warship departed the system, moving silently toward the next observation point. The galaxy had learned the most important lesson. Disobedience invited correction. Compliance guaranteed survival. The commander observed the aftereffects calmly, noting that fear was no longer panic. It was understanding. Across countless star systems, species whispered the same words in dread and awe. Humanity acts not in anger, but with certainty. None can resist its will. The example had been made, and the galaxy now knew the price of defiance. Humanity's patience had ended. Its judgment was final. After the fall of the Xylar Dominion, the galaxy entered a period unlike any it had ever known. Silence stretched across systems like a heavy, oppressive fog. Fleets no longer challenged the human warship, and political leaders paused before issuing orders that might provoke its attention. Trade routes reopened cautiously, but no one moved boldly. Messages were sent slowly, carefully worded, and monitored for unintended offense. Across star systems, species whispered in awe and fear, speaking of the events they had witnessed as though recounting legends. Humanity had acted with precision, enforcing consequences without hatred, leaving the galaxy to absorb the lesson at its own pace. The human warship, having completed its mission of correction, did not linger unnecessarily. It moved slowly, deliberately, toward the edge of known space. Its path was unobstructed, and no fleet attempted pursuit. Observers recorded its departure, noting the calm and deliberate movements, yet no one dared draw near. Humanity had made clear that its actions were calculated and inevitable. The commander monitored the systems left behind, ensuring that the effects of destruction were final, and that lessons had been recorded. There was no celebration on the warship. There was only duty, executed with quiet precision. In the wake of the destruction, the Galactic Council convened again, this time in unprecedented silence. Leaders avoided each other's eyes, recognizing the limits of their own power. The fleets that had once been the pride of empires were scattered, broken, or destroyed. Star systems that had resisted humanity's rules now understood their folly. Some governments attempted to rebuild defenses, but even these efforts were tentative. No one wanted to test the warship's patience again. Humanity had demonstrated not rage, but certainty. That certainty alone reshaped the galaxy. Across surviving planets, civilians tried to understand what had occurred. People spoke in hushed tones about the sudden collapse of fleets and the disappearance of worlds. Fear had become a constant companion, tempered by a strange sense of relief. Humanity had left them alive. Those who had complied, evacuated, or fled before destruction found themselves spared. Those who had resisted, ignored warnings, or acted violently were gone. Stories spread of the calm and deliberate human commander, who did not need weapons to enforce his will. Across schools, forums, and assemblies, the same lesson was repeated. Humanity's strength lay in understanding and inevitability, not aggression. The commander, watching the galaxy from the warship, recorded the aftermath with careful attention. Every system was monitored. Population shifts were noted, political alignments were logged, and the remnants of fleets were tracked. Humanity's goal was not to rule or conquer. It was to correct, to enforce a balance that had been ignored for centuries. Every decision, every destroyed planet, every measured application of force had been intended to teach a lesson. Now, the galaxy had begun to internalize it. Silence, the commander knew, was as powerful as any weapon. It allowed reflection, understanding, and adjustment without further bloodshed. Some species attempted to argue that humanity's methods were unfair. They claimed that survival had come at too high a cost, that cities and civilizations had been erased without trial. The commander did not respond. Humanity had never sought approval. Its actions were based on principle and calculation. The galaxy had been given choices, opportunities to comply, and warnings to avoid destruction. Those who acted wrongly were corrected. Those who accepted the lesson survived. The outcome, though harsh, was not arbitrary. It was precise. In the systems bordering the destroyed regions, fleets were reorganized with caution. Military leaders worked to ensure their defenses could not provoke humanity's attention, while scholars studied the patterns of destruction. Every action taken by the human warship had been observed and recorded, providing a clear understanding of its methods. Gravity fields, temporal distortions, and spatial manipulation had proven beyond the capabilities of any alien technology. Even the most advanced scientists admitted that humanity had discovered principles that could not be countered through conventional warfare. Fear had become not just survival instinct, but education. Across the galaxy, whispers began to coalesce into understanding. Civilizations realized that direct conflict with humanity was meaningless. Diplomacy, caution, and measured compliance became the new standard. Traders, diplomats, and leaders spoke carefully, ensuring that no offense was given and no error committed. Humanity had not sought to rule. It had enforced a reality that all must acknowledge. Observation and restraint, rather than tyranny, had rewritten the rules of interaction. The galaxy was no longer the same. Systems that had once been bold, arrogant, or careless now hesitated before acting. Within the warship, the commander considered the future. Humanity had delivered its message, enforced its principles, and demonstrated the limits of alien power. Yet it was not finished. Observation continued. Patience, as always, remained humanity's strength. No system would be destroyed without reason, and no action would be taken without calculation. The galaxy could rebuild, realign, and reflect, but the lesson had been engraved in the minds of every species. Those who understood survived, those who did not vanished. Humanity had ensured that its place in the galaxy was now permanent, not through domination, but through inevitability. As the human warship traveled toward deep space, the stars returned to their quiet rhythm. Civilizations slowly resumed their activities, but always under the shadow of observation. The silence after war was absolute. It was a calm that carried the weight of understanding, fear, and respect. Across systems, leaders and citizens alike learned to measure their actions, to weigh consequences, and to acknowledge the existence of a species that would act with precision when required. Humanity had not ruled the galaxy with force. It had ruled with knowledge, patience, and certainty. And in that silence, the galaxy finally understood that the era of ignoring humanity was over. The human warship had reached the outer edges of known space. No fleet dared follow, no government dared communicate beyond cautious signals. Across the galaxy, civilizations had learned the lesson of inevitability. Humanity had acted not in anger, not in conquest, but with precision and patience, enforcing consequences where centuries of diplomacy and treaties had failed. Every world that had resisted, every fleet that had challenged, and every empire that had ignored warnings had been corrected. The galaxy now understood a single, undeniable truth. Humanity was no longer a species to underestimate. Inside the warship, the commander reviewed centuries of human records and the outcomes of every system affected. His eyes moved over holographic displays, tracking population movements, political alignments, and planetary recovery efforts. The mission had always been clear: humanity would not seek domination, but it would enforce survival. Each act of correction had been measured, deliberate, and final. The commander had ensured that no unnecessary destruction occurred. Mercy had been offered where possible. Inevitability had been delivered where required. The galaxy had learned, slowly and painfully, to respect the law of humanity. In the Galactic Council, silence now dominated discussions. Leaders had grown cautious beyond all precedent. Fleet exercises were minimal, diplomacy careful, and trade routes monitored with meticulous attention. Even minor offenses were considered potential threats. Humanity's demonstration had reshaped the political and social landscape of the galaxy. The fear of correction, precise and unavoidable, had replaced the pride and arrogance that once dominated interstellar relations. No species now believed it could act against human principles without consequence. Meanwhile, scholars and historians recorded every detail of the human campaigns. They studied the methodology, the use of gravitational manipulation, temporal distortion, and the precise application of force without traditional weapons. They debated the motives of humanity, attempting to understand why a species had waited centuries, endured losses, and finally acted with such measured decisiveness. The consensus was clear. Humans had mastered patience and precision, understanding the universe at levels no other species had achieved. Their victories were not the result of technology alone, but of foresight, restraint, and calculation. On the planets that had survived human enforcement, leaders implemented profound reforms. Policies were rewritten, alliances restructured, and militaries reorganized to avoid provoking humanity's attention. Borders became less important than compliance with laws that respected the balance humanity enforced. Trade flourished under the careful watch of observation and restraint. Citizens adapted to the knowledge that human oversight was omnipresent, and while fear persisted, it was tempered by understanding. Humanity had created a new order in the galaxy, one defined not by domination, but by inevitability and measured control. In deep space, the warship continued its journey, silent and unchallenged. The commander monitored distant systems, noting improvements, compliance, and lingering risks. There were no celebrations, no boasts of power. Humanity did not seek recognition. Its goal had always been stability, correction, and survival. Every action was deliberate, ensuring that the lesson of inevitability reached every corner of the galaxy. The stars themselves seemed quieter as the warship passed, a testament to the presence of a force beyond comprehension, operating with calm precision. Some isolated systems attempted defiance even after the fall of the Dominion and other major powers. Secret fleets were constructed, and hidden weapons were readied. Yet none dared approach openly. Humanity had taught a lesson that required no further demonstration. The commander observed these efforts, recording and calculating outcomes without haste. Patience had always been humanity's greatest weapon, and now it worked invisibly, shaping behavior across light years without a single shot being fired. Resistance was futile, but learning and compliance guaranteed survival. As the galaxy adapted to this new order, the Council sought a fragile balance. Trade, diplomacy, and communication continued, but always with care. Even the smallest systems understood that any misstep could result in correction. Humanity had established a presence that was invisible yet absolute, a principle that reshaped every aspect of interstellar life. No fleet could challenge the warship, and no political maneuver could negate the consequences of disobedience. The lesson had been delivered, and the galaxy would remember it for centuries to come. The human commander reflected on the path ahead. Humanity's role was not to conquer, but to safeguard survival, to ensure that no species could ignore history without facing the consequences. The warship, an embodiment of human patience, understanding, and inevitability, moved ever onward. Each system it passed observed, learned, and adapted. Humanity had proven that strength lay not in numbers, not in weapons, but in foresight, calculation, and the willingness to act when the time was right. The galaxy, though fearful, had also learned to respect and endure. By the time the warship reached the unknown regions of space, the age of humanity had truly begun. Systems once proud and defiant now understood the new order. The galaxy had been reshaped, not by destruction alone, but by the certainty of correction. Humanity had risen quietly, patiently, and with unshakable purpose. The commander recorded every detail for future generations, ensuring that the lessons of patience, inevitability, and precise enforcement would endure within human archives. Across the galaxy, whispers became understanding, and fear became tempered with compliance. Humanity did not rule with tyranny, but with certainty. Every species, every leader, every citizen learned that the universe had changed. The human warship moved silently through the stars, carrying the weight of history, justice, and inevitability. The lesson was clear. Defiance had a price, compliance ensured survival, and humanity, patient and precise, would forever shape the destiny of the galaxy. The age of humanity had arrived, and nothing could undo it.